This here is an Epic V8 Surfski. I'm going to show you basics of how to get on this thing, how to ride it, how to fall off, whatever. Because I'll probably show you all of that. Before I start, I'm a beginner surf skier. I've had this for 6 months. I'm just going to try to answer some questions that I had when I got it, and hopefully share some of the things I've learned in the last 6 months about what to do, what not to do. The first thing you have to know is how to paddle. And it's just like any kayak. That's all this is a kayak. It's a thin kayak. It's not like one of those plastic ones, the big wide ones. Although this is a V8, so it's one of the more stable surf skis. The way to paddle is you hold it firmly, gently, but this is your stable hand. Make that your right hand. And that's going to go into the water straight. Your foot will be inside here. I'm trying not to get sanded. So that'll go into the water straight and you'll pull back. And then with this hand here, you're going to twist the paddle, put that in the water, and pull back. And this hand you won't have to twist again. This one just goes straight in. Pull back. And now when you're pulling back, you're actually pushing forward as well with this hand. Now the paddle should be, when you put your paddle together, you should have it so that you have it at a pretty much a 90-degree angle, or close to, between the lower blade and the upper blade. So the upper blade is slicing through the air when you're pulling with the opposite arm. Okay, so that's the basic strokes. You're pulling this way, twist, pull this way. The other part of this is you want to twist your body when you do this. And I'm doing this on the sand, so it's a little hard to see, but you plant with your body pretty twisted. When you're twisted, you'll see that this knee will come up, and this knee will be ready for power. And when you put the power in, you press with your left foot, when you're pulling in your right hand, you're pushing with that, and then when you twist and pull this hand with your left arm, it's exactly the opposite. This shoulder's going forward, one is going back. Concentrate on your shoulder to go back, and that will get everything right. You're not so much worried about your knees coming up. You'll watch some videos that have them talking about the knees coming up. That's not really the point. The point is to get your shoulders in rotation. And if your shoulders and your hips, because you're going to drive your hips a little bit too, if they're in rotation, the knee's just going to come up. You don't have to, it's just a sign that you're doing it right if your knee's coming up. And the same thing, you plant, you'll end up looking like you're bicycling as you go. The hand width on the paddle should be about shoulder length. You'll see people talk about having this on your head and doing this, and this is the proper. There's arguments against doing that, and I'll say that I think it's better to have them closer. And the reason is pretty simple. You have all your power here. This is where your power is. So you want you want the power to be closer to you. You want it to be in there. If your arms are out here, your power isn't out here. If you were to try to do pull-ups, this would be very difficult. This would be a much easier pull-up. So you want your hands to be closer, and that's just for your own strength, to be able to get as much strength into the water as you possibly can, and that's what's easier. This here gives you more leverage, but you lose your strength because now your arms are far apart from each other. And that's the basics of the paddle. Twist your body with every stroke. The next thing is the brace. And the brace is basically just this. Get into the water and you start to fall this way, you brace. Go this way, you brace. And that's a brace. The brace is extremely important in surf ski because surf skis are narrow and they're tippy. People have a real problem with that idea. They don't like the fact that surf skis are tippy. But after a few days using it, it's really not that big of a deal. You get into surf and it gets tippy again. You get used to it. After a while, bracing, you don't think about it. In fact, when you're pulling the water, you'll twist the paddle around to correct for balance. You don't balance with don't balance with your body. If you try to go, oh, I'm falling, that's not going to work. If you start falling, you want to brace. The other thing you can do is if you're in the middle of the stroke, you can back the stroke up. So then you back it up, and that'll right you as well. Back it up and right you. Also, you can when you're pulling, if you twist the paddle this way, you're going to end up going this way. And if you twist it this way, it's going to push you this way. So by twisting the paddle also. And you do this very quickly, very subconsciously. You're not really thinking about them as you go. Just know that these are all options. When you're going into a turn, when you want to do a steep turn, especially if you're moving forward, you can plant the paddle behind you, make a hard turn, and this can act a bit like a rudder. You have a rudder on there, you're using your feet as a rudder as well. That acts like a rudder, and you can lean into it and really get a sharper turn out of it. Also, if you want a sharper turn, lean back. The more you can get the nose out of the water, the better your turn will be, or the quicker you're going to be able to turn. That's the same thing when you're paddling. If you're on a wave, if you get your nose up, you'll be able to turn quicker. That nose, it's this knife edge blade, and it's digging into the water. And if you allow it, it's going to drive the boat. It's going to steer the boat exactly where it wants to go, or where the wave is taking it. So that little rudder in the back, it's just a small little thing. That nose is huge. So that little rudder is competing with that nose. So if you can get that nose up out of the water, the better your turns will be. But also you can use the blade to also help with the turn. So you can get the nose up and dig in, and you can get your turns better. I also, when I'm on flat water, you can be paddling, and you can put hard rudder in, and you can just stop for a moment, and that'll also get the turn to be a little sharper. And you just stop, paddle, stop, and that'll help the turn be a little sharper. I have a leash. You have to get a leash on for a surf ski because you will fall off, and you will fall off in wind, and the wind will take the board, or the boat. The wind will take the boat, and you'll never see it again. So you have a leash, you put it on. All right, so this surf ski is quite a bit more stable than most others. So we're going to be able to do something that you can't necessarily do in all surf skis, which is sit down and put the legs around. You can do it, but usually you have to get the paddle in the water very quickly. I tend to put the surf ski in sideways just so that the rudder isn't hitting against the beach. But you really should put it in nose first so that you're going straight out towards the waves. Anyway, and then once you get in, put the feet underneath the straps and use the rudders to steer. I also use the paddle to steer quite a bit as well. I'll explain that in a moment. Has a bailer here. You can close it with your foot. I can't open it with my foot, but I can close it with my foot. That venturi allows the water to escape from the wheel well if you're moving forward completely. I like to paddle with a quick stroke. I'm not really paddling totally correctly right now. I try to keep it at least at a level 2. If 1 is first gear and 5 is the fastest you possibly can paddle, I usually do 2 or 3. I usually paddle in a 2 or 3. When I'm trying to catch a wave, I'll be in a 4. 5 I can only do for maybe 30 seconds or so, and then I'm dead. Keep your shoulders back. Notice the knees bend a little bit. Put pressure. Don't put a lot of pressure on your toes. You don't really need it there. The boat will tend to go straight. So there's no real reason to be using the rudder that much. I mean, I'm using a little bit now, but you don't really need to use it a lot. Usually when you're moving forward, it'll just track whichever way you're paddling. You don't really need to use rudders much at all. Just tap them occasionally. go in a different direction. Turtle over there. Idea, plant, pull, rotate the shoulders. You want to plant out as far forward as possible. When you're going over waves, head's totally straight into them. This is very gentle, not really a big wave at all. Key to surf ski, I think, is knowing where your limits are. You don't want to get into conditions that are way over your head, certainly not right away, especially when you're balancing. Here's bracing. You should, when you're first learning, it's a good idea to just practice bracing, even if you don't need it. Every few strokes, just practice putting the oar in the water and brace it. It just keeps you on your toes. Alright, so we're going to try to catch a wave here. Hopefully I won't lose the camera. Surfers over here. This here is Flat Island. We're in Kailua Bay. Now I'll just put our butt to the... I like to catch the waves sort of at an angle. I don't want to have I would like to see the waves, so I can turn quick enough where I can catch the wave if I'm at a slight angle. Now, I'm not teaching you how to race. This is not what you do when you race. When you race, you just go a straight line from A to B. You don't really try to catch waves other than what is available. You don't want to. Now, I don't race. It's just me understanding my little bit of what I understand what it's like to race. I'll probably race at some point. Right now, it's all dirty. Okay, here comes the wave. Let's see if I can catch this without it throwing me all over the place. I have a camera on the back of this, so this is a little more precarious than normal. Surfers going too. I don't want to be in the way. Paddle in the water to keep balance. A little bit of a paddle every once in a while. We can ride this wave a lot longer than a surfer could. Another thing that you can do as well, now this is getting a little more greater technique, is we just rode a wave coming from this way, and this island has waves coming this way as well. So we could have caught this wave until it started to die, and then caught another wave going this way. Or you catch a wave made by the wind, and then then there's a bigger swell, and then you catch the bigger swell, and the wind wave helps you gain the speed. Now there's a little more advanced stuff. I'm still trying to learn how to do that. But this is Surfski. Now notice the V8, I'm pretty stable here. I'm not like working really hard to keep this thing stable. If I put the paddle straight, this is a little tougher to keep balanced. But as long as I have the paddle at an angle, I'm pretty good. I don't even really need to do a whole lot, except for when the wind comes, except for when the wind comes or when a wave hits me.